and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that harmony and accomplishment coexist. The spa in Spa Life, the SPA, is for seek power always, that power within you to do your bigger work. I am so thrilled to introduce our guest today, who's frequently referred to as the messaging and marketing genius, and my favorite, the Harry Potter for business. Angella Johnson blends a world of strategy and intuition together, where she guides entrepreneurs to make great money doing the work that they love. Angella, welcome to the show.
Hi, Diane. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much.
It's great having you here. You're one of those people, when I first saw you at Laura's event, that you talk about energy and intuition, where I'm like, I just want to know her. I want her in my space. And, when I just learned more about who you are and what you're doing, I just think it's amazing. And, we just talked a little bit about, I'm just going to jump into this, about that nothing's wrong with us. And sometimes we feel in business, if we're investing in something or we're doing certain things, it can feel like there's something wrong with us. And I'd love for you just to speak to that, because you do a lot to help people embrace who they are and to listen to their inner knowing. And I think that's so important. So I'd like to just jump into that.
Yeah, well, when we take a look at, first of all, just, again, thank you for having me on your show. And I love the topic of what you're really putting out into the world and empowering women to have these conversations. There is something greater in life, and it doesn't have to be struggle and work hard. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you. But that also leads me into, when we are in this world of bettering ourselves, whether it's business, health, professionally, financially, like whatever it is, it's really easy to find ourselves in somebody else's formula, to find ourselves in something that we've got to cram ourselves into or fit ourselves into, when what if there's another possibility completely? I mean, we can take a look at education, healthcare systems, businesses, like there is a right way and a wrong way. And so if all these right ways actually worked, then everyone on the planet would be doing far better. Right?
So true.
And so it's like, we can on one hand go like, yeah, this just makes logical sense. Yeah. When we're in our own experience of, particularly in business, investing, part of my background and part of my experience, and what has got me to this place of being really just peaceful about my life and my business and the money in my bank account and all those things, it was not always like that. And so I saw myself, and I see a lot of other people do this, of, there must be something wrong with me. Therefore, I need to look outside of myself, find the expert who knows more than I do, pay them a lot of money. And what I was experiencing for myself is every dollar that I invested, I just gave a little more of my power away. And there was that message, and it was, and it's not about being a victim to any of this. And that's the other thing that is really important in this conversation, is I absolutely willingly invested in program after program after program.
Angela, a lot of times when people are listening to the show, they're driving, and sometimes I think some really important nuggets get passed over. Can you say that again about when you were investing and giving part of yourself away? Can you say that again? It's so important to have that land for people.
Yeah. Well, and this is where, to apply it to yourself, maybe it's not investing dollars, but for me, it was absolutely investing in dollars unwisely. And so with everything that I invested in, I gave more of my power away. And there was this promise, whether it was spoken or this underlying promise or unspoken promise of if I do this, then I will be more successful. And we know that those if-then statements in our life don't work. So why would it work here? If I lose 20 pounds, I'll be more happy. Or if I achieve this in my marriage, then my marriage will be happier. It's if then, what? That's probably a whole other podcast topic. But I find that this happens a lot. And so what it actually ends up doing is it perpetuates this false belief that we're broken, we're inherently flawed. And then there's always this next solution of, we'll just do this webinar or do this another program or sponsor this event or whatever the thing is, and not making any of those things bad.
Right.
Because we can see that they actually work for some people. But when we try to copy and paste, what worked for that person, it must work for me. And if it doesn't, then there's something wrong with me. And that's the key, is what if there's nothing wrong with you? What if that was just completely out of alignment and now you have more awareness?
Right.
Sometimes awareness comes at a high price.
Yeah. So would an example of that be like, for instance, like this podcast, like if someone like was watching us and they're like, well, Angela's on this, this must work. This is for her. I should do it too.
Right.
That's like looking outside versus they go, oh, I really like the message. Let me check in with myself, see if it's in alignment with me. And when that's a yes, then I'd like to be on that show.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And really check in, like, what resonates about this? What doesn't resonate about this? Be honest with yourself. Right. And if something doesn't resonate, but you're like, well, everyone loves this. Everyone's really, like whatever it is, what am I missing? What if you're not actually missing anything, but you're just so clear that, oh, that's just not a match for me. Cool. Now you're one step closer to finding what is a match because you're not distracting yourself or wasting your time trying to make something work that's just not designed for you.
Right. Absolutely. Well, as the creator of the intuitive marketing matrix and the soul messaging, archetypes, are those part of the answers for people to look within themselves? How are you using these tools to support women who do want to start listening to themselves more?
Yeah, well, what I really find is, especially in business, I work with entrepreneurs, mostly service-based entrepreneurs, and I find that a lot of people come to me when I was in that same boat of investing tens of thousands of dollars for, a decade of time. And with every single one of those investments, it was like, oh, just more and more. Here's what's wrong with me. Here's another formula. Here's another thing I've got to stuff myself into. And it backfires. And so with the, Soul Message Archetypes and the intuitive marketing system, all it is a method that empowers you to know what's best for you. I always tell people, like, if there's somebody in front of the room or on a webinar or anywhere saying, this is the only way to accomplish X, Y, Z, and it's steps 1 through 7, pay attention because that's impossible for that to be true for everybody.
Right.
Humans, we're very diverse creatures. It just doesn't work like that. We'd like it to work that way. Like, and this is funny. The funny part of it is, like, we'd like it to work that way. But then there's this huge part of us who are rebels. That's why we're entrepreneurs in the first place. We actually don't really want to be told what to do, but we kind of do. And this is a very, very interesting situation we find ourselves in. And so it's always about just coming back to, well, what actually works for you? What's true for you? And are you willing to stand up for that truth in spite of what the expert or somebody you just paid $20,000 to or whatever the thing is, that they might actually have a different opinion? That's okay. Because at the end of the day, it's really about, are you willing to be that accountable for your life?
Right, right. And so how do you weave in like the vulnerability piece as far as, for yourself as a coach and really inspiring that of others?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think people are just naturally more willing to be vulnerable and not. One of the pieces of feedback I get from my clients quite frequently is, gosh, you're just so real. Like, there's no pretense. Like, what you see is what you get. And I very consciously created a brand that is true to that because that's just who I am. Right. And Brene Brown, she has this great Netflix special, and she talks about the vulnerability hangover. Like, when you reveal too much and the next day you're like, oh dear, that was too much. That was like, are people going to be able to handle it? Right. And so I think that's actually where the real work is are you willing to share even if it's not reciprocal? Right. And sharing from the place of being truly vulnerable and not from a place of drama or being a victim. There's a difference there. Right. And I always, the rule of thumb that I have for myself is, what do I share? Or I share things after I've learned the lesson. Like, here's what I experienced. Here's where all my shadows came up. And then here's what I did with that. And here's how you can apply it to you. But I don't typically share things when I'm in the middle, like share things publicly with my audience or clients when I'm in the middle of the breakdown. That's actually not the place for vulnerability. That's when I call one of my friends, like, I'm freaking out right now. Like, here's what's going on. Can you remind me of some tools that I can use to get my energy back into alignment here?
Absolutely. I like to call that messy in the middle.
Yes.
Right? When you're in the middle of it, you really can't have perspective and you don't really know what the full lesson is in that. And so you actually maybe just kind of like, what's happening in your space right now. And you may actually not show up with authentically how you are because it could be more reactionary from your emotion or you haven't fully thought through the process on that. So Yeah, that's interesting because that kind of with social media, so many things happen like in the moment, and people are wanting to be authentic and to share what's actually happening. How do you kind of help maneuver that for yourself, and how do you guide clients with that too, about wanting to be authentic with what's true for them now? They maybe haven't really worked through all of it. They maybe not even know what the lessons are right now versus that sharing versus that wisdom piece.
Yeah. Well, and I always look for, and we can spot this, you know, when someone so I'll just use social media because it's such a prevalent example of when people preface their vulnerability, like vulnerable post here. And there's this act of like, do I have permission to share this? And there's always this really interesting energy with that. And sometimes I call that the manufactured authenticity. Of I'm going to share this so that I can position myself as a, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So there's an agenda or there's an attachment to it. That's not vulnerability. That's not actually authenticity. That's a brand building strategy, which could maybe work. But I find that what the stories that I share without any attachment to what people think, which is a really sometimes difficult energy to really hold for longer than a few seconds, that if I have an agenda or if I have an attachment to the outcome or how I want people to respond, that is my sign that it's not time to share it. Right? That's my sign to myself of like, oh, I've got too much personally invested. My ego is driving this. Right. This is not about vulnerability. This is what am I trying to get from this? And so there's an energetic difference too of what am I trying to get? And we can look at this with partnerships of any kind versus what can we create? What am I creating when I post this? What am I creating when I share this? Versus what can I get from this? It's a very different energy. And I find also for those of us who are watching people's content and there's just something that's like, I just don't know, something just isn't quite right. I can't put my finger on it. And then I look at that energy. Oh, is this person trying to get something from me? Or are they trying to create something greater and involve me in the process? That's a very different relationship that people create with the second piece of that. So.
Yeah, well, and that comes down to asking better questions and to really, trusting ourselves and being part of when we have these kind of spiny things that come up to really just to listen to those and to lean in to see what that actually looks like and how you shift that. Now, I know that you have also, you've shared the stage with many visionary leaders, anywhere from Lisa Nichols, Elizabeth Gilbert, Lynn Twist, when you are on these different stages and a lot of these women have shared a lot of vulnerability in their life and what they're up to. Yeah. Sometimes especially when we're sharing stages, do you ever feel like influenced by their perspectives and, different audiences receive people in different ways and there's like trends, right, of what's happening and what's going on. How do you kind of maneuver through that?
Maneuver through the different trends to still stay like authentic to me? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. I find that through enough practice, you really get to the core essence of what you stand for, and that can be applicable in many different situations. So if there's something politically happening, like we can still use that essence to speak to that, to not just spiritually override what's happening, what's impacting people worldwide, not just in the United States or just not politically right now. Like there's something about when you have that essence and you trust that. So going back to that self-trust piece, right? And also the other piece of self-trust is you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Right.
So
and
true.
Just know that, and so the times that I've gotten on stage and my agenda has been, I want everyone to like me. Then I don't make that much of an impact. Like, it's nice. It was one of those like, yeah, that was a lovely, lovely talk. I feel inspired. But when I actually just authentically create some polarization in the audience, not from that intention of I'm going to divide this audience. And there's some speakers, that's part of their brand and they are really great at that. That's not me either. But it's like, what is my unique message to share in the way that I share it? And not everybody is going to agree with me. Right. And I can just really own that. Then that essence, again, can be applicable in so many different facets. And people are going to, and this is the other thing, people are going to hear what they want to hear.
It's funny because I've had people like, I'll do a certain talk and I'll have like 3 different people tell me their impact. And it was like, wow, like that's interesting that you got that out of that talk. Right. So it's fun, right. Cause of course people hear what they need to hear.
Yeah. Well, a great example of that. It was in my event. It was a couple of years ago and there was someone in the audience and she was sharing about her activism around teen suicide, preventing teen suicide.
Okay.
And so we were talking about her own personal experience with that. And I shared a couple possibilities that I've had to really embrace with my own family members who were struggling with mental health. And I shared my perspective of the moment that I surrendered, that if they choose this, they might choose this. If they don't choose this, then they don't choose this.
Right.
But can I actually prevent somebody from doing this if they are that committed? And I said, this is a really uncomfortable topic. And this can also bring in all the, I didn't do enough, or I should do this. And I said, but I'm not saying what you should do or shouldn't do.
Right.
But for me personally, when I surrendered to people I love dearly, may actually choose this.
Yeah.
Can I love them in this moment right now?
Mm.
And can I not let that completely destroy my life while they're living or even after they passed, if they do choose that? So this was the conversation. So you can already imagine, like, and I'm not even giving you all the context, but
Right.
there's a reason for that. And so we had this, what I experienced as this beautiful opening of surrender, and this beautiful opening and conversation about true acceptance for people when they're choosing things that are very painful for us to witness, whether that's addiction, things affecting with mental health, like all, like so many topics.
Right.
And so the point of my story is, several months later, there was somebody who's doing the AV for my audience, or for my event. And I asked him to do another event. He said, I will never do an event. You are so irresponsible. You basically told that mom that it's okay if her daughter killed herself.
like that's what you got out of that?
And that's what I said. I said, that's what you got? That's so interesting. And so we hear people, we see people through our own agenda, through our own filters. And while we can try to give as much context as possible, people will still find proof for what they would like to believe, regardless of what we say or do.
Right.
That's
right. So we
the
just
trick.
have to get clear.
Like, that's really the trick of, like, how do we still keep showing up in our essence, sharing our message when people are going to misinterpret it, people are going to misunderstand it, people are going to think it's stupid, people are going to say that it's whatever it is,
Right.
good or bad, right? It's all just really interesting points of view floating around, and we're trying to make a difference with all these projections and points of view, including our own.
Right.
And it's like, wow, this is a little more complicated than I thought it would be.
Well, Brene Brown, I saw the Netflix episode as well. And I think that was such a great example of all the kind of comments, I mean, from good to ugly on there, and how that put her in her own spin of watching her, like, binge watching Downtown Abbey, and just, her whole reality around that, about how those hits come from us. And it's just like, you still, and this is where the vulnerability and courage and things come in, is that you have to still keep going forward with your message and what you resonate with. It, you are going to be hit from all kinds, from people who love it to those who hate it. And, we can't let that, derail us to doing what it is that we want to do.
Yeah.
So, it's a wild kind of journey. And I think it's helpful for the listeners to hear that you still stay on your path, right? And even though there may be naysayers, you just still have to answer to what's true for you and what that looks like. And, still kind of talking about that disempowering conversation versus, empowering. I know that you've got a really great story about, using like health and your body and things around how that was a disempowering conversation for you and how you moved through that.
Yeah.
Would you like to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, because it's also related to business. So when I was on this hustle, I call it the hustle and hype-filled journey, building a business. Like, I was on the bandwagon. I was the friggin' poster child for more, faster, better, like go, 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 go. And 2012, I just completely burned out. And I was getting some signs from my body, like, hey, things aren't quite working. I was gaining a lot of weight. I didn't feel good in my body. My joints hurt all the time. And I was sitting at a desk, 10 to 15 hours a day, because I was so like, no, I have to get this done. I have to go, 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 go.
Right.
And so there's a two-sided journey to this. One was just, wow, my health got so loud that I finally really had to take a look at it. It's like, what is happening? I actually, this was in my, I'm almost 42 now at the time of doing this episode. So this was in my, mid 30s. It was like, I'm like 35 years old and I actually don't feel good in my body. Like I actually feel really crappy. And it wasn't about self-confidence or self-esteem. It was physically feeling like crap. And I kept tolerating it and kept tolerating it. And that just became my new normal. And so a couple of years ago, I was like, something's got to change. And so I did some research about autoimmune disorders and diagnosis. And I was like, this is not the rest of my life. This is not my destiny. Right. I do not accept this. And this is the thing about me is I have this stubborn streak. Like when somebody tells me what to do or to do it this way, I'm like, tell me why. Like, give me some data around that. I'm not just going to
breaker you.
You're an MD and I'm in your office. Like, there are many ways to solve this quote problem. There are many ways to get healthy. And I'm really glad I listened to that. And so that started me on a journey of listening to my body. And so when we talk about self-trust, it's like, if you want to trust yourself, but you are not willing to be in your body, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I have not seen that work out for anybody. And I've talked to a lot of women about this very topic. So that was part of it. And then the other part of it was I saw that there was this driver behind my health was disguised as making my body smaller. And so I've been doing some recent research about anti-diet culture and just how this is affecting so many women and men. It's like, wow, what if my driving force behind my health, air quotes here, was not about making my body any different. I just wanted to feel really good in my body.
Great distinction.
What would that journey be like? And that, like, I can feel myself even get a little choked up about it now because it's like, that is liberation. That has been such a freeing journey for me.
Yeah.
It's not about, counting calories and trying this and trying that. It's like, okay, if that works for you, great. But for me, it's like, I'm done with diet after diet and basing my value on the size of my body. I'm done. Because if I'm treating myself that way, I absolutely have that bias with how I'm receiving other people.
Yeah.
Right. And so there is a big connection that I'm still honestly working through. Like, wow, this is so deeply ingrained. What if I could just really, really love my body as it is right now? I wonder what healing that would create. Yeah. And so as I've been exploring that, gotten really curious about it, adjusted my eating, like I've been diving into the world of supplements and gut health and all these pieces. And it's like, wow, my whole world has opened up. But that fundamental energy is, again, if I don't trust my body, if I don't want to even be in my body, how in the world can I trust my intuition and deepen my intuition and live my life from that intuitive place? If the very vehicle that I'm creating my business and money and relationships and memories and travel, I'm completely disconnected with.
Right.
This just doesn't make any sense to me. So that's been part of my work in the last couple of years for sure.
It's such an empowering journey to have that distinction, because I can literally, when you were saying that, I could remember being in high school and I had a lot of friends that were like size 0 and size 1. And I mean, I'm German built. Like I don't think I ever was that size. Right.
Right.
And just the whole feeling of not ever being the right size. It didn't matter what size I was. It was just never the right one. Mm-hmm. And when you stop having that conversation and start having that embracing and being like the best version of this body that you have, it's so liberating, and it's so huge to have it. And it's so important to have this kind of conversation, because I guarantee you, everybody riding down the road right now listening to this has a body story, like whether it's good or bad or different or any of that, and it's just interesting to see that that's been such a societal conversation, that it's important to be like, okay, that's a great way to take your power back, is to say, this is my body, this is the one I've been given, and yes, I can make shifts and changes and make improvements to this model that I have, right? Not, another model that's been issued to somebody else, but to really make that determination. And I think it's so important that you're having this conversation. So I applaud you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a really, it doesn't only affect women. I've had a lot of conversations with men, and I'm amazed at how this is affecting men as well. And I just go back to, gosh, if we spent all the time with the diets and the trying to fit into that pair of jeans, or losing weight before the wedding, or like whatever it is, like all this obsession about it. If we actually, and I'm not saying that taking care of our bodies and nurturing our bodies is not important, but judging our bodies, like how much energy and time is that taking? Yet at the same time, I say I want to impact the world. Like if I just dedicated 10% more of, like 10% less of judging my body, and like a lot of that energy to actually creating a change on the planet, I think we'd live in a very different world.
Definitely.
With a whole lot less judgment.
Definitely. Well, and our body is an environment, right? And it's like choosing how we want to treat that environment and what it looks like, which reminds me, one of the things I love teaching on environments and using our environments and how they affect us. And so I always like to ask our guests that, you know, we feel differently in our bedroom versus our kitchen versus our office. Yeah. What is your favorite room in your home and why?
Oh gosh, that's a trick question because we just moved into our home last August. So we've been in this home for about 8-9 months or so. Yeah. And I love every room. And so, but it also depends on the energy. Like when I really want to just like hunker down and focus, like I'm in my office right now, this is the space dedicated to that. But I have a couple other areas, even on my front porch, where I'll do client calls or team meetings to bring in a different energy, a new energy. So, but every room in my house, I would say if I had to choose one, it would be our living room. We've got these really tall ceilings and this beautiful wood ceiling. And it's just this space, and it's the core and the center of our home. And, you know, my husband, Richard, and I, when we bought our first home, this is our second home we've owned, we set the intention with both places of we want people to feel loved and accepted for who they are, that they could be going through a storm in their life, but they come into this space and they are acknowledged, appreciated, seen, and loved. And we get that feedback time and time and time again. People, and we even hear them when they walk through the door, they go, and they don't even realize they're doing it. And we'll give each other the look of like, yeah, we've created that space for ourselves. Yeah. We want this to be a place where everyone is welcome.
Oh, I love that so much because, you know, we've created that here as well in our home. In fact, I've got, you know, several friends here this week, and, you know, there's just something about creating a sacred space and to have people feel that way. And I forget sometimes that not everyone's created their space that way. You know, I can't imagine not having that. In fact, you know, I've shared a couple times, one of my big dreams is that I actually own all of the homes on my block. And I want to have it so that my daughters have a home, my close friends and family have a home, and that we create this actually extended version of my home within my block. And so I just hold the vision of that, and it just feels so good to just have that connection that we have with the people that mean something in our life. So that always brings a smile to my face.
I love that. I love that vision.
So good. Well, you have such manifesting great intuition. Why don't I'll have you put your Harry Potter energy on that vision.
Yes. I see it as done.
I love it. So good. Wonderful. Well, I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you, and you have something to give to them. What would you like to share?
Yeah, so the best way to reach me is I'm a Facebook junkie. So Angella Johnson, you can find me as 2 L's in my first name, so pretty easy to find there. But if you go to angellajohnson.com, you'll find some resources there, including my intuitive marketing guide. It's a free kit essentially that starts you on this process of trusting yourself. You know, and it's funny. I was talking with a friend the other day, and she said, you know, yeah, you're good at your business, like that's your jam, but there's such a deeper level of the work that you do. I said, you caught on to my secret agenda. And she said, what is that? And it's this exact conversation of what would the planet look like if everyone trusted themselves?
Oh, I love that question.
Like really trusted yourself, of that vision that you have. So the vision that you have of, you know, of inhabiting your block and creating this sacred space on your entire block. Like energetically, what does that look like? Physically, what does that look like? And trusting yourself to actually create that, and letting and surrendering to timing, to this agenda, to, you know, our egos attached to it, but like really creating and trusting yourselves to create. Yeah. Like that's actually the work that I do. The gateway drug is simply, let's apply this same way of being to your marketing. Because when you start seeing the results in your business, they're so much more easeful, so much more magical. And it's not this constant push and this hustle and this, you know, aggression that we've got to like keep going. Like when you see the results there, the trust that it builds will absolutely impact every other area of your life. So that's my secret, secret plan.
Agenda.
Yes.
I love it. Oh, so great. And we'll have all those links in the show notes, and people will be able to get a hold of you that way. And I want to thank you just for this time being on the show and sharing your wisdom and your journey. I love what you're up to.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for creating the space for conversations like this. It's awesome.
Oh, my pleasure. And I just want to thank our listeners because, you know, without you, we wouldn't have a show. And just giving your resource of time, which is just the most valuable resource that we all have. And I want to thank you all for being part of this conversation, and to share it, right? To get it out in the world so that other people can be part of this conversation in the comments. You know, it really helps getting it out when we, you know, rate and subscribe, and we put in comments. You feel free to tag Angela and myself with any questions that you have, and just be part of the conversation. That's how we start trusting ourselves more. That's how we build community. It's really how we start standing in our power. And so be part of the community. I will also have my link in there as well, my Life Reset Quiz. So you can go to liferesetquiz.com. That gives you awareness, like what is working, what's not working, and trust yourself to take that next step. So thank you so much for all being part of the conversation and for joining us. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.